Hello and welcome back. I wanted to do another tutorial that covers some of the new color correction features that were introduced in Adobe CC 2015. Now, if you've been running with Adobe, you know that they have had their color software for correction, and that has had integration with Premiere that it's been dodgy over the years. This is the first time that I think they just knocked it out of the park with color correction. It is a new feature that can be found under Window, and it's called Lumetri Color. I've already got it loaded into my workspace. I keep it right here. And what it is a collection of basic tools. You've got your basic correction, temperature, tint, your tone, your exposure, your contrast, highlights, shadows, black, whites. It's a lot like the raw editor in Photoshop, and I'm so happy it is because I love the raw editor in Photoshop. You've got some creative tools. Here is where you will find most usefully the sharpen tool, which I do like using, plus some other stuff that we'll look at in a bit. You've got your contrast curves, which you can use just like you were using them in Photoshop or in the RGB curves tool. And of course you have your RGB right here. You can reset anything by double clicking. You've got color wheels. And finally you have a vignette. Welcome to Adobe Premiere, easy to access vignette. We are so happy to have you here. We've been waiting so long for your arrival at this party. But let's get into what happens automatically as you use Lumetri. Now, as you are moving your playhead around, it will automatically select whatever clip is most likely the clip you want to adjust. So as we move our playhead over this clip, it automatically highlights it, and if we go into Lumetri Color, it will automatically adjust that clip. The moment that you adjust it, it creates on the clip a new effect. And it is called Lumetri Color. Very, very easy to understand. And from there, you can turn the effect on and off as you would any other effect. And you can also delete it as you would any other effect. So let's look at some of the options in here. You've got your contrast. A lot of DSLR footage is a bit flat when you get it out of the camera, and that's okay. You just jack the contrast up ridiculously. You've got your exposure, which works well. Obviously, it's not going to work as well as if you're editing a raw photo. But it's pretty good considering we're working in AVC HD right now. You've got your temperature, you can cool it down, warm it up. You got your tint, you can green it up or red it down. I don't know what ups or downs are appropriate for discussing that. What I like to do is blast contrast, boost the exposure a little bit, and then draw those blacks back down. Now you'll see that that has already helped the contrast feel better. I think we overdid it on the exposure, so we can bring it back down a bit, and we overdid it on the blacks, so we can ease up on those a bit. We can even boost the contrast, the saturation, which immediately looks ridiculous because Iron Man is red and digital doesn't do red, as we all know. Let's boost that a little bit more. All right, that's pretty good for basic correction. We've got these creative tools, which are kind of neat. The most effective one for me is Sharpen, which I like to add to every clip. I keep it around 10 or 15, maybe 20, depending if the footage is really shot on a dodgy lens. But we'll leave it at 10 for now. You got your faded film, just in case you want to look like you shot for Instagram. Vibrance, which is like... Vibrance is like saturation, but it doesn't affect skin tones so much, or so I'm told. I don't really use vibrance so much. You've got more saturation, and you've got all your shadow tint and highlight tint. And you can reset anything by double clicking. You've got your curves, which work like any other curves. Easy enough. And you can reset it by double clicking. And you've got your color wheels. Now, color wheels I believe are very, very good, but I'm not good at using them, so I kind of skip over them. And alleluia, we've got vignette finally. You've got your feather features, roundness. I usually jack up the roundness, and your midpoint is where the the vignette starts, closer to the center or closer to the edge. So there's some basic color correction on this shot of Hulkbuster versus Hulk. And as you can see, we can turn it on and off very easily over in the effects control window. Now, something else you can do. Maybe you don't want to go down to creative and boost the sharpen on every clip. And maybe you don't want to go down to vignette and boost the vignette on every clip. Something that's really nice about Premiere is you can go over here and make an adjustment layer. It'll automatically be the size of your project. Drag it on top. And what I'm going to do is take this effect and copy it and paste it on the adjustment layer. And when we turn it on, you can see that we don't even need it here. And that is now the adjustment layer that's affecting the clip. What I want to do is confine the adjustment layer to our sharpen controls and our vignette. So that means I'm going to turn off the basic correction, the curves, and the color wheels. Now everything that's underneath the adjustment layer, what I would do there is retain basic correction. Well, first I would turn it on, and I would retain basic correction, but I would not retain sharpen, which is under creative, or vignette. So now we've got this adjustment layer controlling the sharpen and the vignette, and we've got the actual clip where we are affecting the exposure, the contrast, the temperature. Cool it down, warm it up. Chris, I'm about to. And whatever other adjustments we do in curves and color wheels. Let's stretch this thing out and turn it off for a minute. This was shot on the Sony G4, a very nice little camera that shoots very nice slow motion. What we have over here is a clip of Swinky that we shot on the Blackmagic. Blackmagic shoots a lot flatter than your average DSLR. You'll see that the contrast is higher over here than it is over here. The saturation on the DSLRs is higher than it is on the Blackmagic. This is good. When we shoot on the Blackmagic, we want to shoot flat, but then we want to be able to bring it back in post-production where we do our editing. So let's turn on the adjustment layer and see what happens. We've added our vignette and we've added sharpen to the clip. Now let's go over to Lumetri Color and look at one of their really, really nice features. Up here in Input LUT, or Lookup Table, as it is said when you want to say it longly, we've got some options, and included in those options is a Blackmagic ProRes profile. And what this will do is automatically get your Blackmagic ProRes footage to something more similar to the level of contrast and the level of saturation you'd find on a DSLR. This is wonderful because if we don't have that, even if we blast the contrast and the saturation, it's still not really working. So what we do is we go to the core lookup table for the ProRes, and now we can adjust these sliders as we need. We can boost the exposure a bit. It looks a little dark. We can continue to boost the contrast, and as we boost the contrast, we might want to up the exposure a little bit. And we can drag down the saturation. Not the saturation, sorry, we can drag down the blacks to get some of that contrast back. And already, this footage is looking pretty cool. I think that vignette is a little extreme, so we're going to bring that down a bit. We just want to retain focus on the center of this screen. All right, back to Swinky and the main footage. That looks good enough. Let's reset it and just get that exposure to where it's good enough. Another thing I'd like to look at is under creative, and this is, I don't really use these looks for DSLR footage because DSLR footage, when it's shot H.264 or AVC HD, it just doesn't have the information to really get into good effects. But when we're shooting on the Blackmagic, even at ProRes, we have options for these different film stocks, and some of them look kind of good. Some of them are a little extreme, as you're seeing there, but you can get really nice filmic effects. I've been enjoying this one, which has really good film-like contrast. The blacks fall off into those 1980s style filmic blacks, but there's still clear information here on the skin. Really, really nice stuff. I'm glad they included this. Not all of them are so good. Gold Tobacco looks a little ridiculous. The noir options, don't know if I will ever use those. Maybe that, but that just looks like a nice black and white. Anyway, these are really fun to play with and to push your footage in more creative directions really efficiently. And then after you've found your look, you can come back over here and tweak it. So I feel like we have a bit too much contrast, and we can bring down the highlights a bit and continue to boost the exposure as we drop those highlights. Now it's looking too flat. Let's drop those blacks a bit. And very efficiently, we've created a very, very nice stylistic look. From footage that came out of the camera looking like that, to footage that looks like that in a matter of minutes. And the nice thing is, if you're working with multiple clips, you can take these effects and copy and paste them across your whole timeline if you want. Or you can put them up on the adjustment layer like we did with the sharpen and the vignette. Very, very useful tool set. It's so wonderful to have this included inside the software and not have to go out to other software to do basic color correction like this. And another thing that's great about this is we can now do color correction while we are doing the edit. Instead of waiting for picture lock to do color correction, we can start to noodle with the footage while we are cutting. And this is great for clients because they can start to see good looking footage even when they're just getting the first cut. I hope this explanation has been useful, and I am very confident that if you explore these tools, it will make your workflow so much smoother and more exciting because you'll be doing more creative work quicker. Good luck with everything you work on. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see what we do with these new tool sets.